Welcome to Spelling Bee Ninja, your go-to source for free educational content. We're on a mission to make learning fun and engaging for everyone. If you enjoy exploring fascinating facts and unraveling historical mysteries, be sure to subscribe and join our community of curious minds. Let's dive into today's topic on historical myths and discover the truths hidden behind some well-known stories. Have you ever heard that Napoleon Bonaparte was extremely short? This myth has been passed down through generations and often creates quite a humorous image. However, the truth is a bit more enlightening. Napoleon's height was actually recorded as 5 feet 2 inches in French measurements. When converted to modern feet, this equals about 5 feet 7 inches tall, which was the average height for a Frenchman during his time. The misconception likely originated from British propaganda intended to mock him, leading many to believe he was much shorter than he truly was. So, next time you hear someone say he was tiny, you can confidently share the truth about his height. And now, let's talk about another enduring myth: George Washington having wooden teeth. It turns out this is also not accurate. Washington had numerous dental issues throughout his life and did wear dentures. However, his dentures were not made of wood. Instead, they were constructed from various materials, including human teeth, some taken from people who were enslaved, as well as from poor folk, hippopotamus ivory, cow teeth, and even metal components like brass screws. It's fascinating to think about how our understanding of historical figures can change with the right information. So, if someone mentions Washington's wooden teeth, you can now explain the materials that were actually used. And moving on, have you ever heard that the Great Wall of China is the only man-made structure visible from space? This is a myth that gained popularity over decades but is entirely false. Astronauts who have orbited the Earth have reported that even from low Earth orbit, where the International Space Station flies, the Great Wall is just not visible, even with binoculars. What's interesting is that some larger structures like airports or the pyramids may be seen under the right conditions, but the Great Wall? Not so much. This myth originated in the early 20th century, and a fun fact is that the first human spaceflight didn't occur until 1961. So, the claim was essentially a guess by Richard Halliburton in 1932. And then let's move on to French history. Many people believe Marie Antoinette famously declared, "Let them eat cake," in response to hearing that the peasants had no bread. This quote sounds powerful and has stuck with us, but there is no evidence supporting she actually said it. The saying first appeared in Jean-Jacques Rousseau's autobiographical work when Marie Antoinette was just a child in Austria, well before she ever came to France. Moreover, Rousseau referred to an unnamed great princess. Over time, this phrase was wrongfully attributed to her. It serves as a reminder of how stories can distort history over time, even if often believed to be true. And moving to exploration, there's a widely held belief that Christopher Columbus discovered North America. However, this is not accurate either. Columbus actually explored various Caribbean islands, such as the Bahamas and Cuba, but never set foot on the North American mainland. Long before Columbus, the Norse explorer Leif Erikson reached North America around 1000 CE, making him one of the first Europeans to do so. Furthermore, John Cabot claimed parts of what is now Canada for England in 1497. Understanding the true explorers can help us appreciate the complexities of our history. And next, let's address a myth about ancient Egypt. Many people believe that Hebrew slaves built the pyramids. This idea is largely drawn from biblical interpretations and popular films. In reality, archaeological findings reveal that the pyramids were constructed by skilled laborers who were paid and housed in nearby workers' villages. Contrary to the popular myth, these workers received rations of food like meat and bread, indicating they were not enslaved but rather part of a respected workforce. It's remarkable how the truth can illuminate our understanding of ancient societies. And now, let's explore the infamous Salem witch trials. Many think that the accused witches in Salem, Massachusetts, were burned at the stake. This is another historical myth that can be surprising. In fact, none of the accused were burned, they were hanged, except for one man who was pressed to death. The image of witches burning is more associated with European practices than what happened in early America. The trials led to the execution of 20 individuals, demonstrating the tragic consequences of fear and superstition that can mislead society. And speaking of misunderstandings, it's often said that Albert Einstein failed math in school, but this couldn't be further from the truth. Einstein was an exceptional math student. By the age of 12, he had taught himself algebra and geometry, and by 15, he had mastered calculus. The misunderstanding likely stems from a misinterpretation of his school's grading system and some playful jokes he made later in life about his academic experiences. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes tales about great figures can arise from misunderstandings. And now, let's tackle the myth surrounding Roman Emperor Nero. The saying goes that he fiddled while Rome burned during the Great Fire of 64 CE. However, this is a historical inaccuracy, as the fiddle, an instrument that we know today, did not even exist at that time. While it is true that Nero was away at his villa when the fire started, he returned to Rome to coordinate relief efforts for those who lost their homes. It is also documented that he later used the cleared space to build his new palace. Thus, the narrative of Nero as a passive ruler during the disaster is not entirely accurate. There's so much complexity in historical narratives that understanding the truth can change our perspectives. And finally, the myth of the American Wild West often depicts it as a lawless land filled with gunfights. However, this is largely exaggerated. Most Western towns had strict regulations on firearms, requiring individuals to check their guns with the local sheriff. The famous shootout at the OK Corral is an exception rather than the norm. In fact, studies have shown that homicide rates in those towns were lower than in many cities in the East. The glorified version of the Wild West hides the reality of community laws and order that existed during that time. Today we unpacked a series of intriguing historical myths that have persisted over time. From the height of Napoleon and the truth behind George Washington's dentures to the reality of the Great Wall of China's visibility from space, we discovered how easy it is to confuse fact and fiction. We also learned about Marie Antoinette's misquoted statement, Columbus's actual expeditions, and the truth regarding the Egyptian pyramids. Furthermore, we explored the executions during the Salem witch trials, Albert Einstein's academic prowess, the reality of Nero's actions during the fire of Rome, and the true nature of law and order in the Wild West. Each myth we examined reveals how history is often colored by misunderstanding and exaggeration. Thanks for joining us on this enlightening journey through historical myths. We hope you enjoyed the lesson and that it inspires you to look deeper into the stories behind the figures you think you know. Subscribe to Spelling Bee Ninja for more engaging content and continue your exploration of history. Until next time, keep questioning and discovering the truths of our past.